Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Pamela, you and I have been in this coaching and training, consulting, product management business for a long time. And this concept of product-led has been sort of a buzz of the past few years. You know, is product-led anything different than we ever did before?
I think for some organizations, which were definitely project-led, I think product-led is kind of their, how do I put it? It's their chance to get off the project-led stuff. And I kind of classify different companies as they're project-led, trying to be product-led. They're project-led and proud of it. And they don't, and then the third one is I'm product-led and I didn't even know I was it because that just seems to be the right way to do things.
I get that. And it's sort of and that's part of the problem I have. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this question was there are so many different thoughts of what is product led. Is it a freemium model where it's about, Slack and Zoom and how do we give stuff away? And, if you read some of the product led growth stuff from Wes Bush and the open, whatever VC people, it's a very much a model of that type of stuff, where there's also a lot of people who look at it as this is, to your point, we're not doing projects anymore. We're looking at a product and looking at long term. And some people even look at it as it's product, the function leading the organization, sort of like sales led or whatever it be. So on Monday, we put this and this is a statement and a question. I sort of wanted to give some context. Product led growth has become a very popular term with lots of confusion on what it is. What is your take on what it means to be product led? And Debbie Levitt is a friend of Product Growth Leaders. She's a UX CX coach, consultant, writer, and she came in pretty quickly and said, shared some stuff from a book. Will we be product led, engineering led, or sales led organization, or will we be value led, as in led by our company's values and the value we can create for potential and current customers? And it made me start thinking like maybe value led is a better way to start thinking about it, or problem led than product led. I don't know. We got some great posts that came in. And, I'd love to start, Cory, with you. You talked about Todd Olson's answer in his Becoming Product Led book.
Yeah, that's the one that I kind of resonate to. I've heard all these other definitions and I don't like any of them, or I don't agree with them. It's not product management led. It's not product versus project. It's not that type of stuff. His definition in his book, Becoming a Product Led Organization, is really the one that I kind of resonated with, which is where does the experience happen? If it happens in your product, and that's actually what I wrote down on my sticky note to kind of say, here's a cheat code for are you product led, is where does X happen? Well, we have a new sale. Where does new sales happen? Well, we got to call a salesperson and do this. That's not product led. Or we want to get people to increase the signups. How do you do that? Well, we're doing this email marketing campaign and we're getting people to sign up for our products. That's not in your product. If the experience, if the activities, if the things that are happening to grow your product happen in your product, then you're probably on their way to being product led. If it happens elsewhere, you're probably not. Somebody gave the example, I think it was Jason or somebody was talking about the fact that, sometimes you're trying to be sales led, but you push that to product, but you still have to call a salesperson. So a great example of something like this is, imagine you need to cancel two things, your Netflix subscription and your New York Times subscription. Which one of those is easy? Which one can you do in the product? Which one do you have to actually make a call to get off that subscription list?
But isn't that degrowth?
It's an example, right? Sometimes you have to do that to sign up too.
I completely understand. There's subscriptions I have that it's like you can sign up and give them a credit card online, but to cancel it, you have to call somebody.
Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec, because every year I cancel my New York Times subscription. And I do it online.
Do you? Okay.
New York Times has shifted. So this is the big shift that's going on. Companies which were previously not product-led have become product-led. Now I got to figure out how to close a Capital One savings account. So let's see how many hours it'll take
another
to get
good
back
example.
my 50 cents,
There's another good example.
No, I get that. I don't know. It's tough because there's this all encapsulating everything happens in the product, marketing happens in the product. You talk about customer experience, and even customer success management comes into this. So how do we build some of these experiences into the product, which to me becomes almost a business model for the product versus a, which I guess could extend to the freemium if you're doing the right places. And did anybody read there was a great article on when product led doesn't matter about Qualtrics killing SurveyMonkey. Now I could argue that if you want your thing to be, enterprise, you don't call it monkey or chimp. It's more of a small business thing. But it was basically talking about how Qualtrics, killed SurveyMonkey in the sort of survey game, and they did it with an enterprise sales force who was selling to the C-level on the value of data. And it was used as an example of why product led's not always the right way. But it seems like it's different than what you're talking about, Cory.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I'd love to see something like that. And I looked at a bunch of things to try to say, what are products or what are companies? I think that's another interesting juxtaposition is it a company that's product led, or is it a product that's product led? And I think it's more companies that are product led.
This confusion out there, right? Paul Hattal, I wish he had been on here because I wanted him to go deep on this. The term is as useful as saying crop led farming.
I mean, there's different types of farming, isn't there?
The proponents define product as the culmination of every business function as it is eventually experienced by the customer. It was interesting to go into there. He said he wasted a lot of time on the product-led growth collective top mind and didn't get a lot of value out of that. So I think part of it comes with, are you enterprise or are you not, SMB or consumer-led? Maybe that changes some of it. Joy, where's your head on this?
So my first thought was completely different. My first reaction, and I think it's because of the experience that I've had. So my first instinct was product led versus sales led, because you're talking about growth. And so I've worked at a company where the growth of the product was absolutely sales driven, and new products were sales driven. All the ideas came from sales. Sales would talk to a customer and say, we need this. And that would drive it at that company. We had new features, entire new products, even the requirements were dictated by the customer. So my first reaction when I saw the word growth, product-led growth, was, well, I've worked at a company that was sales-led growth. That was awful. It's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is from product, that the product identifies and prioritizes what's coming next, what the product market fit is, what the market needs. And so that's how I read it. You're on mute, Grant.
I need Steve's button. Gosh. No, I could see it that way too. I had a conversation with the CEO and a head of product of a, $10-15 million, growth equity funded company, because they wanted to talk about product led. And I said, what do you mean by product led? And they gave two different answers. They gave product is sort of leading the process, right? Product is helping make the decisions of what we do. And almost to what Pamela said earlier, we're looking at things as a whole product, not as projects as part of, or whatever it may be. And there's a thing there I want to get into with Pamela in a little bit about IT organizations and digitization of people taking what were IT projects and making them more product led. So you made me think about that. But the other one that came up was with the freemium model, the Slack, the Zoom, right? How do we have our product sell itself? And it still seems like people are using the same term to mean both of those things. Cory, you have your hand
Yeah,
up.
that's one of the common things that I was looking at was a lot of people say that freemium model is a kind of path to product-led growth, which is how quickly can customers get into our product, find value in our product, and want to pay for our product. And you do that through these types of try it before you buy it models, whether it's a week or 30 days or 10 articles or whatever it is you get to experience the basics of the product, see if you really like it, see if it's something that will work for you. And then if you can, then you go to the next step, which is I'm willing to give you money for it.
Yep.
And that's a good indicator of product-led growth, the original topic, which is how do you get people to do that, or what do you mean by that? Which is people experience value in your product quickly, easily, without a lot of friction, and then they immediately say, "I'd like to give you money for that."
And I think and I put the Qualtrics article in the chat. I think one of the things about that is, how do you take that product led, a couple people, Slack and Zoom have done a good job of taking this product viral thing where one person uses it and sends it to other people and they start using it. But in an enterprise purchase, that sort of goes against the way that enterprises buy. You may get it departmentally.
To a point, I mean, that might be something where I guess a good case would be something like, what's the thing that got bought by Adobe that everybody was up in arms against? Figma. So when Figma started, that was just at the design community, right? Designers were using it, they were passing it back and forth, and suddenly 4 designers at a company are using it, in an enterprise company are using it off brand, or not approved, but they're still using it. Then at a certain point, they push up to the company and say, look, we need to get this because it's useful, everybody wants it. So did the sales group really sell that product? Not really. Did the company buy that product? The users found it useful, pushed for it, said this is what we need, and they got it most of the time.
But I think this transition between, and I'm an individual and I want to use this software versus I'm a corporation, I want to use this software, in that gap, or in that transition, having salespeople is very useful. When I was working on a SaaS training program, I kept having to remind the guy who was like 100% SaaS, not everything is SaaS, right? Yeah. And then he gave us examples where if they didn't have customer success managers, they would have less adoption. So product can only take you so far. I think it can take you pretty far with an individual, but in an organization, you have to have some other people that are sort of pushing that water uphill.
Yeah, I completely agree. I got a couple other things.
I don't know, Cory, the look on Cory's face.
Well, and I'll jump in and say this, and we can come back to it later, which is, I don't think being product led means you don't have salespeople. I think it means that salespeople are not your main path to growth. I think they're there to answer questions like that. There's a big enterprise and they want to buy 1,000 licenses, or they have 1,000 users. How can we help them do that? Okay, maybe there's some path there that a salesperson needs to get involved, but they're more the customer success, the buying agents or something like that. They're not the gatekeepers for do we sign this person up as a customer or not.
So, and that's where I was going to go. And May, I do want to get to your response because you've been, patient with me, but there's one thing I was thinking about. Product led, it could be that you understand that the salespeople are part of the product, right? I view that every experience somebody has, from the first lead all the way through support, and when they leave is all, when they cancel the subscription to the New York Times, right? That is all part of the product. And if we're thinking product led, we need to get the salespeople to realize that the experience that they're providing is part of it, whether the sales is happening within the product in a viral nature like Zoom, and people sign up through that, or it's happening because you build the bottom up, as you talked about with Figma, that then the salespeople to understand that they're part of this process. They're concierges helping people get to where they want to get. So I could see product led being, whether it's in the software or using a Salesforce, it's understanding that that whole experience is part of the product. And I could get that for product led. May, you said you've always considered product led to mean decisions made on what to do next is not based primarily on sales, technology, or ego, but based on understanding what's desired by the buyers and consumers of the product, which to me gets back to sort of this initial question I asked Pamela is this just the same thing we've been doing for 20 years with a different name?
I think listening to all of you talk, going back to what Cory and Pam was just talking about, it's always assuming that you have the right platform and channels to sell it, to get it to the clients, and to support it. But also, I think we're focusing on the wrong words, right? We're talking about product-led growth, but all we're talking about is growth. And I think the word product-led doesn't actually have any meaning. It's just like it's like the words product led is to replace all of the other whatever led
Sales
then
led,
growth.
technology led,
Yeah,
finance led.
exactly. But like I think every I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say like everything that we talked about so far, it's about what drives your growth. Like so here's where you are. We have like 1 million ARR. How do we grow that number? What do we do to grow that number? And those decisions, if you make the right decisions, it could come from sales, but it's like a validated, yes, sales is right this time around. Or it could be based on technology, but yes, technology is right this time around in the specific market context. Let's make that bet and see what happens, right? So it's the decisions you make into going into growth, and whether or not that's successful. I think that's what people really mean by product-led growth.
And so there's the assumed growth on the end of it, because sometimes we just say product led.
Yeah, like product-led's the placeholder to replace all the other LEDs.
So basically what we're saying is, if we use the product style decision-making, which includes validation, right? We should end up making better decisions. And then we sugarcoat it by saying it means you're product led.
Basically, that's my interpretation of it. But it's also there's a lot of, but like the way we talk about it now, we make a lot of assumptions about what goes on behind the background to enable it, right? So I think generally speaking, I'm sure this is going to segue very nicely into your poll.
Oh, we still got about 5-10 minutes to talk before we get to the poll.
But like, how do we get there, right? Like, what are the different factors it takes to start making good decisions to become so-called product-led in order to grow well?
Can I? Oh, Faith, you wanted to say something before I go. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in real quickly with maybe a slightly different take, which is there's something about the way that which tail is wagging the dog kind of affects the whole system. So what I've seen happen is often when sales is in the driver's seat of the bus, you're always playing catch up. You're always ending up doing kind of bad development because everything has to happen fast because somebody has to close a deal. And so regardless of whether or not there's a, kind of a reason in the market to, add a feature or whatever, just the fact that you're always responding to the immediate signal of a prospect who wants something and a salesperson who wants to close a deal in the near term, kind of automatically means that feature is going to kind of get bolted on in a sort of, ugly way. They're probably not really considering how best to improve the product to meet that need. And the engineering involved is probably not going to be that great because the whole organization is focused on, the time to try to make this deal happen. So I see product-led as kind of shifting the dynamics of the entire organization. Sure, it may be about this decision-making or validation kind of in the small, but, looked at larger, it's about the health of the entire organization and getting all the activities in the organization trained in a way that results in healthy, sustainable growth and a product that can continue to evolve because quality decisions and quality implementation is being made. So I think sometimes we don't necessarily look enough at the more systemic impacts of where are we allowing the drivers in our business to come from. Yep. So that's all.
No, and actually that's sort of where I was going to go. And then there's almost like even now two lenses of what we mean by product. One is the product itself, the holistic product, right? And I think, Faith, what you just said really resonated with me, where if we're looking things from the lens of the holistic product and the problem we're solving and how these things work together, it becomes more sustainable to do it that way than to do this Frankenstein type bolt things on. But then also some people look at it as the lens of the function, right? The product team is sort of led. And I think one of the issues I have with product led is maybe it's product hubris, but it's like, well, if any single focus, any single function leading it is bad, so should product. It shouldn't be product leading it or technology leading it or sales leading it or finance leading it or whomever. It should be us all circling around. And I could buy into that your lens of the holistic product as being that. Yeah, I think Steve and I are working on this concept of problem led, right? Let's make sure we're all aligned behind the problem we're solving for the market and that type of stuff. But I don't want it to, anytime you put one function or group ahead of the other ones as they're the ones leading it, I feel like you're in a place that could be, it's just changing the tail that's wagging the dog. I don't know. A lot of things in my head right now, as always when we have
Yeah,
this
let me kind of, I want to go back a minute because in what you were saying there, Faith, I was just kind of taken by it, which is if you look at timescales, and by the way, we are all in this discussion kind of making an assumption as to what kind of product we have, right? If we were doing the Zoom thing, we might be looking at it differently. If we were doing, we have huge enterprise ERP software from Oracle or whatever, it's different. But from most of the products that we are exposed to, if we take a project point of view, which is inflexible, then that leads us to a too long of a time without making interim decisions. If we take sales as leading us, then we're going to have too short a time horizon. And the product one, I think, is kind of just trying to hit that Goldilocks moment of
just right.
Just right. Okay, sales, we're going to get to you. We got it. Yeah, we know where we're headed. We got enough of a vision of where we're going. And the product-led decisions, I think, are best. And again, I can see Cory going like, okay, I got to make a comment here. So Cory, don't play poker. All I can say is don't play poker.
Pamela, you brought back in this concept of project to product. And a lot of places I'm seeing people use the term product led are in internal IT shops who are trying to get out of this. We build it, we do a project and build something for an internal stakeholder and then leave it, right? And they're trying to shift it. I know you've got some background in sort of that stuff as well. Talk to me about product led there.
Well, so what was interesting was I was working with this team, and they were project managers, and they were really lovely women. I really loved working with them, and I was trying to work with them to increase their product type skills. But ultimately, they were delivering for a Fortune 10 company. It was a huge ERP solution, or I think it was HR solution, and either they delivered it or they didn't deliver it. And so I started asking some questions. So this is what product led or product-led thinking helped them do, which is they started bringing in, they actually had a group of, I think, 40 people that were actual users that they were bringing in periodically to review what they were doing. They did not view the fact that once they were done, right? And so this way of kind of integrating the project, it needs to be turned on, and the product, I think, led them to probably the best solution that they could have under the circumstances. So.
And I think, go ahead, Cory.
I think that's really different than the bigger product-led growth concept we're talking about with
Sure.
projects to products. I think projects are very short-term. I'm done with this, and then the team goes and does something else. Product thinking in that term, like you were talking about, Pam, is this is a long-term project until we sunset it. These are people that are working on solving problems for this product, the users of this product. We need people that are on the team that can help with that are dedicated to this effort. And we're constantly learning and doing things about our product. I think that kind of product thinking is great. And it's a great way to organize. I think it's different than the product-led growth concepts.
I think so too. But when you're looking at IT organizations that have to do these large kind of chunks of value that come out, this is probably as good as you're going to get.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to give people the option. Yes, you can maybe use our HR system, but you don't have to. It's like that's not happening, right? You're going.
There's this experience sucks, and we can make it a little bit better,
both
for the people using the product and the people building it. I think a little bit better is always better.
So, and the reason I went back to that though, Cory, is I've seen at least some product thought leaders talk about those initiatives making these teams product led.
Yeah.
And maybe it's product thinking, and maybe this is where all these thought leaders really are saying the same thing, and they just use different terms and words.
And that's where I think the results of your poll really surprised me, because what I had heard in the discussion and what I've heard elsewhere is a lot of people, you mentioned this, Grant, they think it's very contained in their business, in their company, in their teams and everything else. It's this team can be product led, or this team can do these activities, but I don't have to change, or the sales group doesn't have to change, or these other things don't have to change, but we're still product led. It's like every other bastardization or use of technology or terminology that people come up with.
I agree. Any last thoughts on this first question from Monday? What's the take? Interesting thing, Debbie Levitt, who I talked about at the beginning, she came on this morning and said, by the way, a highly qualified UX researcher who has been on my YouTube show for a few times just got laid off because his company wants to be product led. Evidently, we don't need research when we do that. And I think that gets to the, there's some of the conundrum in some of this. But Cory, May tried to take us to the poll 20 minutes ago. I'll let you take us to the poll now. And when we did the poll, the question was, what do you consider product led? And the options were a business model for a product, when we've talked about some of that, a method for product management, we've talked some of that, an organizational philosophy, a product thought leader fad, or other, it depends. And I think, Cory, I was as shocked as you. Now, let's give a little, we did almost the same poll 2.5 years ago. This was one of the first topics we did in Topic of the Week. And it was 25% business model for the product, 25% in organizational philosophy. And Joy, this is back, you should have been doing the polls back then, because I actually gave an all of the above option. But there's been this shift. I added as a thought, the product thought leader fad, which actually it got 21%. And I'm of the mind that it's product led is just everything that, different people have been teaching about, go back to Drucker, go back to, 280 Group and pragmatic marketing and everybody who did this type of stuff. It's about a philosophy of being market problem focused and solving problems. So I do believe it's an organizational philosophy, but I voted for a product thought leader fad because I was being a little provocative on that. Joy, did you vote?
I did not, but I feel like the organizational philosophy is kind of what I was going at. Either it's product led or it should not be sales led. So it's the company agreeing how we're going to manage our growth, how we're going to look at our growth.
And I get that. And as we talked about earlier, I don't want it to be any function led. I want it to be collaborative. I want us to be as a team, right, doing it together, which is one of the reasons why I don't like the term product led, because there's assumptions by some people that it means the product org is the one leading it. And
Well, product led is definitely, we get input from sales, but sales isn't the deciding factor, isn't the deciding team.
I completely agree. I think for me, I would rather have it be, we've got an organizational philosophy, and product just helps run the process and helps, but it's everybody, everybody's part of it and everybody's getting their input to make it happen. May, how did you vote?
Organizational philosophy. When I voted, it was 100%. So
I will say Eva Beasley was the first person who voted for the fad, and she gave me the courage to be provocative in my vote.
I voted for organizational philosophy because, again, I really think it's about growth, right? Mm-hmm. When you said, so, let's talk about targets, right? So you do maybe like, you're in a big organization, you do annual planning. You're like, yes, in this fiscal year, we're going to hit like an additional, let's say like randomly $10 million a year or whatever it means, right? Yeah. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have like value. But if you are an organization that spends a lot of time looking at your numbers, looking at like what could be, right? You're just like, well, there's this much of the market that we haven't even tried going after, and like so far our attempts have gone really well. So, if we get like even just 10% of the market, we're going to hit this 20 million mark. And that's one of the conversations like I've been having internally with, my peers. And one of them actually brought this up as like, what, but they didn't frame it as this is the target. They framed it as, why isn't this our target? Right? What is it going to take across our entire organization to get to that target? What does it mean to support that target? What does it mean to enable our clients to like do better within that target so they can grow as well? So like it actually inspired a really interesting conversation about growth, about what it means to grow, about like the people it takes to support that growth. So I think I sidetracked a little bit there, but also again, I really think it's about growth. It's about an organizational philosophy that brings people together to think about what growth actually means and what it takes to support that growth. Do you need more salespeople? Do you need to train salespeople? Do you need to change the sales quota, whatever that means, right? Like the incentives. Do you need new support people? Do you need to like train your support or success people? Like all of those questions are really valid. I think it's really exciting to talk about it too.
No, it is. And you actually, I was at a conference last week and I was the host of, it was a lunch topic table. And it was how do you grow your product organization? I was hosting for it. And I had the pleasure of the CEO of NPD Group, the big market researcher, which just merged with IRI, who at the table, and there was a director of product saying, I'm struggling with getting support for my new product. The sales teams are used to selling our old legacy product. We can't do this. And this CEO, now board member of the combined companies, came and said, it's about the sales compensation. And there's something to be said about looking at this in a product led, is that we have to have those conversations, that sales has to be part of this. Again, this goes back to my whole collaborative type thing, where it's not just the product leader and the product organization leading it. It's about, I think, Faith, the biggest thing that she opened up in my head was this idea of product led being the holistic product. And if we're thinking holistically about the product, then it's about how does marketing support that? How does sales support that? How does tech support that? How does, versus looking at the product from the product leader lens and saying, okay, sales is my stakeholder, marketing is my stakeholder, technology is my stakeholder. And that flip of lens for me has been very helpful, but I love what you just said, May. Thank you. Pamela, did you vote?
No, I didn't, but I would have voted organizational philosophy.
Okay. Which is, I feel good about, because I think that's, getting it away from that business model, which we did talk about the business model. Cory, I know you voted for that. Your thought, you were surprised. You didn't think it was going to be that much organizational philosophy.
I really didn't. The way that the first question discussion went and the way that most things that I've read, I would have thought it would have been one of the first two or the last one, the thought leader fad. The surprising thing to me is I think what that means is people recognize that this is not a individual group product or division decision. This is your company has to be product led or it isn't. And I think that's the key thing. And part of my job search that I'm doing is I'm looking for product led companies. If I talk to a company and one of the questions I ask them is, do you have more people in your sales group or your R&D group? If you have more salespeople than people building the product, you're probably not a product-led company. Yeah. And you're probably not looking to be a product-led company, which is fine. But I just don't want to work there because I want to work at a product-led company, a company that values and increases the value of their product through their product, not through hiring more salespeople or bigger marketing campaigns or something like that.
And for those, I don't think I gave the results. 71% voted for an organizational philosophy, which may be one of the more dominant wins we've ever had in the poll. 21% product thought leader fad. And again, I did that to be provocative. I think my natural vote would have been the organizational philosophy. But again, I believe that this is the same thing we've been teaching and helping people do for 25 years, just with a different name, if we're looking at it as this market-driven market problems and that type of stuff.
And Steve didn't vote either. So
Steve did not vote because he was off the last 3 days. And then other it depends got 1 vote. But then when you read the vote, they gave their reasoning, and they said they've encountered this term as a business strategy in SaaS where the product itself is used to drive new revenue by converting for users. I think that's what I meant by the business model. So I think that would have fit for the business model. But it was an interesting, I mean, it's interesting to look at where this is and where it was 2.5 years ago when we did this.
I think there's something else that's coming up here, and I'm kind of trying to build a bridge between an organization that's product led and, as Cory was describing it, which is you actually put triggers within the product that help people move on to the next stage of whatever they should be doing, right? And in all of that, I think it is incumbent upon every member of the team, whether they come from sales, product, UX, you name it, that they all kind of have the same view of where they're trying to go, as opposed to it being a competition, right? It shouldn't be, I need a salesperson, so I'm going to take away your, UX or whatever it is. It is, how can we make this successful? And I think that goes back to May's comment as well. How do you get to growth? Can you come to an agreement on what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, right?
Yeah.
At whatever level.
So I did a keynote-ish type thing at a quarterly meeting for a large construction company back in the East, friend of a friend. Wanted to talk about growth and team-led growth, right? Maybe that's another word we look at, is team-led growth. And I sort of had 2 key themes. One, we're all in this together. And yes, I did break into the song from High School Musical, we're all in this together. And 2, everybody has good ideas and needs to bring them too. For me, I used Nick Foles in the Super Bowl when the Eagles won, that he brought the idea of the Philly special at the specific moment. Everybody has ideas, everybody's seeing stuff. So we're all in this together. We need to do this together. And that's, I think, one of my underlying themes when I think about this, in my natural aversion to the term product led, because it can be misconstrued as an organization, the product organization led. And to do this, each person needs to be valued as their contribution, and everybody's part of this, from the first lead all the way through. That experience is going to be part of it. The first question I wanted to ask is, and this is me digging into my Drucker stuff, when done well, does product-led growth make it selling superfluous, as Peter Drucker said about the aim of marketing? Cory, you're nodding your head.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a product that sells itself, who wouldn't like to have that? Somebody who tries to sell your product, and I've had a lot of people try to sell me products in the last 3 weeks, and it pisses me off. Stop selling to me. If your product is good, I will buy it. If your product sucks, I will not.
I get that. Joy. You're on mute.
I meant to do that.
I know.
I think depending on the product, it might not be able to sell itself. I mean, something like Slack, it's amazing how Zoom came out of nowhere at the beginning of the pandemic, at least from my perspective. But working on, currently I'm working on a lease accounting software. I mean, that's just not something that's going to sell itself. Accountants are going to dig into the calculations and compare it to your competitors. And that's where our subject matter experts who are in sales will really be able to shine and be able to point out the differences and the benefits.
So the more B2C or SMB, small, medium business it is, the more there might be a chance, or the less it's reliant on a substantial domain expertise, like that you're talking accounting specifically. So there's some domain expertise in showing you understand it to do that. We talked earlier about enterprise, right? It's tough to do it at the enterprise, although the Figma example, I think, would make maybe selling superfluous and sell itself in Drucker terms is provocative in the way it is. That you still need somebody to help make the deal happen, right?
You still need yes, you still need senior leadership. I mean, you need the buyer persona. Absolutely. You need to know who's going to buy.
Awesome. May, your thoughts?
How do people find out about your product? Because you can build the best thing in the world, but you can't if it doesn't have reach, and reach is marketing. And maybe reach is the selling part, but oftentimes you need the salespeople to bridge that gap if you're an enterprise software to like deal with all of that compliance garbage. Sorry, not garbage. Very important compliance stuff. Um, and I think it's, instead of making selling superfluous, I would say make selling smooth and easy, right? Like, so the sellers are there to facilitate it, to basically act as an external marketing channel, right? So like the salespeople are there to help you push that message through. But like, if you don't have to ever sell, you're probably not looking at the market properly either, because you don't think about what your message is. So I think it's actually really important to think about sales as a part of your product, because then you're not thinking about, if you don't have to think about your message, you're just thinking about the user, you're not thinking about the buyers. Yeah, maybe you're thinking about the buyers a little bit, but you know, you really gotta, sales is an integral part of your product, no matter what you do, because you have to get it in the hands of your users somehow. So whatever that means, I feel like the thought of making selling superfluous is a little dangerous, in my opinion.
It's interesting though, because I'm thinking about, you know, at some point in a market, if you are a category leader who created it, right? Yes, it takes work to get into across the chasm and become a leader that's in hyper growth and that type of stuff. I've seen in markets though, at some points, if you are that dominant leader, there is a transition in it where selling almost does become superfluous, because it's like, oh, I have to have a Reba, or, you know, a procurement software. I have to have this because my peers have this, my industry uses this. It almost can flip it. So I think that there is it's like you're pushing the rock up the hill to get across the chasm and establish leadership, to get to the point where that leadership in itself turns it into, you know, where we're the de facto, and it does, you know, you don't get fired for buying IBM or SAP because it makes it easier. I don't know.
That's not true though. Sorry, do you want?
What does that mean?
Do you get fired for buying IBM?
I'm not gonna say that I used to work for IBM.
IBM of today is not IBM of yesterday.
I know,
Anyway,
that's the old adage.
But I want to point out, I want to go back to the idea of like crossing the chasm. Yeah, sure, maybe you've hit that mark where, you know, you're very desirable, but we're always like never more than 6 months away from someone else catching up to us, right? And so if you're just gonna hang in there, you've that growth doesn't persist, right? And even if you do amazing things with your software, how are you going to get the word out there? You got to keep selling. Like, by selling, I mean marketing, right? Like, I lumped the two together. Although I really shouldn't. But like, Cory disagrees, that's fine. But like, you really got to, like, growth involves marketing, growth involves sales. You can't ignore that. Like, there is no point where it becomes superfluous.
I could take that.
Okay, hold on now. I want to make sure we got Faith. Faith, whatever your question was, I'm interested to hear it.
So you said that this might be the point where hype pushes product led to have to have territory.
Bad territory, probably.
Bad territory. Okay, I don't want to. So is the hype thing? I mean, maybe the problem I have with product led growth is the fact that everybody explained it to me as this viral thing, this freemium. How do you get people going?
Well, it touches on kind of what May was thinking, and I was kind of scrunching my face about with is, it's not about having a viral product. I mean, yes, you might need to let people know that your product exists. You don't have to buy $100,000 or $1 million worth of ads on TV or Twitter or Facebook or anything to push people to your product. And it's not about getting, 5 shares in your product to other people. It's, if I'm an accountant and I'm a really good accountant, to use Joy's example, and this accounting product is amazing for me and my work, and I've got 3 other accountant buddies at other firms, can I invite them easily to my product? Can I let people know that, hey, you know what? QuickBooks is the way to go, or FreshBooks, or this other accounting software, or whatever. Let me do my job easy. I'm a YouTube creator, and I found this, or I'm a corporate a tax accountant, and it let me do these things really easy. Can I share that experience with others and get other people involved? If I can, then yes, you can use virality as a way to spread your message and spread your product. It's also a way for people to, and it's one of my favorite things is people talk about the products that they use and they love.
Mhm.
Why do they love them? Because they let them do these things that they couldn't do before, or the way it happened before was so cumbersome and it took hours and hours, and this product made it so easy. And I want to tell people about that product. If that's viral, if that's marketing, if that's the hallmarks of a good product, I want all that.
Yes, I agree with that. I can agree with that. Pamela, any last thoughts on that question?
No, I think we've beaten it to death.
Okay.
So-
But we could beat it to death more, Pamela.
oh, well, we only have 8 minutes. We'll beat it to death another time.
And we've talked, the second question we really covered a lot in our initial discussion. Is product-led growth the natural evolution of market-driven product management and user-centered design?
I think that's where the technology is taking us. I definitely think that there are, I view every single change within the ecosystem within which people develop products as allowing certain things to happen. And I think product-led growth, which is how Cory originally defined it, is a natural outcome of some of the capabilities, products, solutions, whatever it is, that are now available that were not there 5 years ago.
Yeah, I can see. I was having a conversation with somebody this week, and Cory, it may have been you, I don't remember, but about how Pendo tells you that they've got all the instrumentation you need to learn about your users. And I said, but what about your buyers, right? They can't get it to. We're talking about this bucket type thing, right? Where you are in your life cycle curve. If you're on the high growth, you should be talking to more buyers to get them on board, unless you have a leaky bucket, which is what you might see in Pendo. And I think that some of these tools have given us ability to, once we have them on board, have better insight into how to improve the experience. And maybe it's a mindset that we've had that we're willing to be more think about the experience of the product. Is product-led growth just customer experience? I don't know. May, help me here.
Sorry, I'm parsing your statement. Is product-led growth just customer experience? And I want to say no, right? Because customer experience is current. And product-led growth is about the future. Everything you do within an organization where you decide what to do next, how you change your organization, how you might need to restructure in order to facilitate that growth, whatever that means. I don't know. I don't think so, because again, customer experience is now, right? We want to build for a better customer experience ongoing. Maybe it might be.
And that's sort of where I was going, is we're thinking about customer experience as a main part of the product.
But it's not even just that though, right? Because when you think about product-led growth, if you just think about customer experience, you're thinking about the context of today. But it's a little bit more than that, because there's always that larger vision, the longer term vision. And that might not be a good customer experience today. It might be a different user group, it might be whatever it might be, but I think it's a little larger than customer experience. I don't know how to qualify it.
I can see that. Cory.
I think the answer to the question is yes. It's not it took me a minute to wrap my head around it. And I think it's more around the user-centered concept, just to disagree with May. I think it's more around that than the product management, marketing product management philosophy. But I think it's a natural evolution to a step, and product-led growth, I think, is a step along that way. And there's more past that. I don't know what it is exactly, but it feels like it's more of an evolutionary step.
Awesome. Joy, any thoughts before we head to our lightning round?
I don't know if it's an evolution or it just is. It's just market product management, and
I can be talked out of the word evolution. Yeah.
I can be as well. I can be as well. I tend to, I think that's where I've gotten, at least on this call in my head, although Faith with the whole holistic view of the product versus the product organization being what product means really is a place where it changed my head around this a little. So our lightning round question, what is the value to the organization of being product led? Cory.
The only thing that comes to mind is being better.
Being better. I like that. If we're product led, we are a better organization.
I think so.
Joy.
Revenue.
Profitable revenue, sustainable revenue, all of those things, right? May.
I'm going to go with higher probability of growth.
Okay.
Not sure if I'm like confident enough to say revenue, but
I love it. Pamela.
Yeah, I like May's comment, which is you have a higher probability, you have a better chance of making it through all the hoops that cause your products to fail. There are so many ways for it to fail, and product led at least gives you information, and it gives you a chance for your team to bring their best thoughts to the game as to how they're going to resolve each and every one of those issues that your customers face. So
Awesome. I'm gonna go value creation, right? If we do all of those things, if we become better, if we drive revenue, if we increase our probability rate of success, we create more value for the customer and market, and we create more value for our company. And that's the value. The value is the value, right? So maybe I'm a little too redundant with my answer on there. Wow, what a great conversation. I mean, I'm still confused that there's many definitions of what product led is. I think we've come to what we think it ideally should be or could be. But Faith, thank you so much for sort of pushing me to think outside of my box and thinking about product as the holistic product, not product as the organization. Cory, Joy, May, Pamela, what an incredible conversation. I'm still thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, this call always makes me think, and May just put in there, is this the first time we've converged at the end of the call? I don't know. I think there's a couple other times we've been on the same page, but this was pretty good. I think we were all in this, you know, at least through this conversation, I think we're all coming out in the same place on this, which is really, really good, at least for me to help where I'm going to go. But we do this every week. Did I say Joy and Cory and May and Pamela and Faith? Thank you guys so much. What an incredible panel. We do this every week. Monday, the question goes in. Wednesday, we have the poll when I remember. Friday, we have these unbelievable conversations, and we'll see you next week in the community. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.